Today, we're going to learn about how to write effective introductory paragraphs for essays. So it doesn't matter if you're writing an argument essay, if you're writing a lit analysis essay, if you're writing, persuasive essays. This strategy will work regardless. As long as it's an essay and not a creative narrative writing, this strategy will work. So, just like if you think about where an introduction goes, where does an introduction go in a paper? An introduction is the very first thing, right? So, just like the letters A, B, C start the alphabet, the introduction starts a paper. So, what is the purpose of an introduction? Your introduction should get your reader excited or interested or invested, or at the very least, aware of what your topic is. Your introduction should provide some background knowledge to your reader about anything that they may need to know to understand your essay a bit better. So, if you're writing about a text, if you're writing about a book, like say you're writing about A Long Walk to Water, let's say they haven't read it, they need to know a little bit about what the book is about. So you need to provide them just enough so that you're not giving them too much information, but that you're enough that they're able to understand the topic and the subject better. Your introduction should set the reader up and let them know what your essay is going to be about. So that's really your claim, which can also be called your thesis or your main idea. So, what are the three components of an introduction? So, the three things that should be in an introduction, and thus you should have at least three sentences in an introduction, is a hook, or you might have seen it taught to you as a grabber, sentence or sentences. Usually they're only one though. And the hook is really something that's used to get your reader's attention. So you could ask a rhetorical question, you could give an interesting fact, you could do a descriptive segment, but really you want to give something that's going to grab your reader's attention. The second part of your introduction should be some background knowledge about the topic that's being discussed. So, a little bit of summarization about whatever it is that you're about to talk about. So, if you're about to talk about a controversial issue, maybe a sentence or two about what the controversy is. If you're going to talk about a text, maybe a few sentences where you're introducing or summarizing what that text is mostly about. And then finally, your claim or your thesis statement. So if you remember back to this strategy, TTQA, turn the question around, this is where you use that TTQA piece. It's also the R and A part of the race strategy. So when we teach the introductions, we teach and we talk about the three things that need to be in an introduction. We talk about the ABCs of introductions, or three things need to be in an introduction. So ABCs of introduction is an acronym, and A stands for an attention getting hook. This can be a question that you might ask your reader, an interesting statistic or number fact, a descriptive segment, something to get your reader's attention related to your topic. The B is going to be background knowledge or background information that your reader may need to understand the topic. And C is going to be your claim, also known as your thesis statement. This is your TTQA and your 1 to 2 sentence answer to the essay's prompt. Your claim plus your supporting details. Let's look at an example of an ABC strategy in work. So this is a great example. Maybe you read the short story 11 by Sandra Cisneros, where she goes to school on her birthday and her teacher's mean to her and makes her wear an ugly red sweater, right? If you read that story, this introduction will make sense to you. But even if you didn't, we gave you some background knowledge so you can understand it. So watch how I use it. Would you stay quiet if a teacher was making you wear someone else's ugly sweater? Well, that is exactly what happened in the short story 11 by Sandra Cisneros. In the story, a teacher was very mean to her on her birthday. Rachel, changed throughout the story and that she went from being quiet and passive to outspoken and controversial. So if you'll notice, my very first sentence was an attention-getting question that made you think about my topic. My second sentence was a bit of background knowledge about the genre, which was a short story, the title, the author, and just a little bit about what the story might be about. And then my final C was my claim. So if I know without even reading this essay that the author is going to show me how Rachel has changed from quiet to more outspoken. So let's look at an example of the ABC strategy in relation to the narrative nonfiction text, A Long Walk to Water. I have taken a series of sentences that made a really strong ABC introduction and I've scrambled them all up. So I'm going to read them in no particular order from 1, 2 to 3, and then I want you to figure out which is your A, attention getting grabber or hook, 2, what is your background information or sentence or sentences, and 3, where is the claim. So I'm going to read them and then you're going to figure it out. The novel A Long Walk to Water is about the lost boys of Sudan who needed to leave their homes and walk across Africa to find food and shelter. To find safety and food. One of those boys, Salvadut, showed a great deal of strength in his journey. Have you heard about the lost boys of Sudan who walked for thousands of miles across Africa? Salva showed strength by being there for the younger boys, refusing to give up after overwhelming odds, and continuing to work towards his goals. Can you figure out which sentences go in which order? You need to follow the ABC format. If you said that 3 was the attention, if you said that 2 was the attention getting hook, you were right. If you said that 1 was your background sentence and your background information, you were right. And if you said 3 was your claim with your supporting detail, you were correct. So your answer should have been 2, 1, 3. Let's try another one. In this one, we're going to do the same thing. We're dealing with A Long Walk to Water again. In this story, Linda Sue Park addresses the theme of friendship through the character connections with one another, the character dialogue, and the character conflict. 2 countries, over 10 years, and close to 5,000 people dead. That's what Salva endured after his village blew up. In the narrative nonfiction story, A Long Walk to Water, the Lost Boys of Sudan struggled to survive through wars, deserts, shouldn't be deserts, it should be 1S, starvation, and drought. Can you figure out the correct order? If you said 2, 3, 1, you were correct. 2 is an interesting series of statistics. 3 is background knowledge about the overview of the story. And 1 tells us the theme and the supporting details for the theme. We're now going to begin to write our own ABCs of our introduction. So if you can submit this Edpuzzle, open up your Google Doc, and get ready to write now. If you are finishing this Edpuzzle prior to your classmates finishing, open up your Google Doc, wait patiently while you read your AR book or complete some iReady minutes.